I stole one of my dad's checks. I went down to this bank and I give her this blank check. She says, "Thank you, sir." She goes back behind, wherever she goes, and she calls my dad. He picks it up and she says, "Sir, like, I have your son here and I don't know how long I can keep him here, but like, you need to get here now." And my dad walked in and I saw him like white as this tissue box, white as this Recovery.com mug, just like ghostly. And he got to me and he's just like, he put his arm on my arm and he's like, "Son, we're going home."
Welcome to Recovery.cast, the podcast where we share authentic stories from influential voices about the joys of life in mental health and addiction recovery and the journeys that led us here. I'm Brittany Baynard, and today we're joined by Zac Clark. Zac doesn't just talk about addiction recovery, he lives it out loud. A mental health advocate, entrepreneur, and founder of Release Recovery, Zac's journey from substance use disorder to purpose-driven leadership is raw, real, and deeply human. This episode dives into relapse, resilience, healing, and what it means to truly build your life. Here we go. Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Recovery.cast. Today, we are joined by Zac Clark. Thank you so much for coming in today. Very excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here. I think we just concluded that it's my first time in Wisconsin, and I was in Vermont this weekend, so I feel like I'm in the land of like great cheeses.
Oh, have you dabbled yet?
We had a burger last night at the Tipsy Cow.
Yeah, highly.
And there was definitely some.
Did you get cheese curds?
Not
Have you
yet.
had cheese curds?
I don't think I've had a cheese
Okay,
curd.
you have to dabble in the curds before you leave. It's not like mozzarella sticks. We have to get you like the cold squeaky cheese curds, which are kind of good, also warm.
That's in the bag?
Yeah.
Okay.
And like the squeakier the better. But then you also have to get them deep fried.
Okay, I trust. I'm here. I want to eat the native,
Yes,
the native
full
food.
experience. Awesome. So before we dive in, if people could get one thing from your story, what would you hope that is?
I mean, hope.
Yeah.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And look, my story is about being a heroin addict and an alcoholic and smoking crack and all the things, right? And there's resilience in there. And I go on TV and I tell my story and I get this, which is all fine and well. But I think when I tell my story, I would like for it to cast a wider net.
Yeah.
Because we're all struggling with something.
Uh-huh.
Like, we're all struggling with something.
Mm-hmm. So speaking on that, you say you lived like a charmed childhood, like a really good upbringing. Take us back to that time. And what are some of the things that may have gone unnoticed that you were experiencing?
Yeah, it's a good question and I appreciate it. And for me, so much happens in our so I'm learning a lot about trauma right now. I'm kind of like digging in on what trauma is and how it affects people. And the definition that I like the most about trauma is basically like something that happened to you that shouldn't have, or something that hasn't happened to you that should have, right? Like, so there's these two different.
I never thought about that second part, something that hasn't happened to you that should.
Yeah, like, and that could be anything. Like, I wanted to start on the Little League team and I didn't.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is. That's just an example. I actually did start. Now my ego is going to come into play.
Or like I wanted love or affection from a parent or something and I didn't.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're here with Recovery.com and obviously there's a conference going on and there's a lot of providers there. And one of the providers that I've come to love in the space is On-Site, Miles Adcox.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, he's done an amazing thing. And so I've been to On-Site a couple of times there and I've been very vocal about that journey. And what I've been able to do in going to On-Site is really start to dig into that childhood experience.
Mm-hmm.
And just because it was the white picket fence and, I would say like I never had like the nicest baseball bat, but I always had a bat.
Yeah.
So we were kind of like middle, right down the fairway. But my parents, what I've come to learn and that I was not kind of awake to as a child is my dad was working really hard to keep it all together. And my mother always put herself last, right? So her kids were the most important thing to her. And I picked up some of those things, like I'm one of these guys that a lot of times will kind of run around and try to help everyone in the room and forget about myself.
Exhaust yourself.
And that's something I saw my mom do.
Because you saw that's like a how you care for other people.
Yeah. And I love my mom. I mean, my mom and my dad are my best friends today, but there are certainly, no matter what, I am convinced that things happen in our childhood that form who we are.
Oh, I 100% agree. I mean, even looking back on like doing the child work myself, I'm like, all the things that thought like those never affected me. Like when my parents got divorced, I took it very well as a kid. Like I remember them sending me to a counselor and then being like, how are you? And I'm like, I'm actually kind of fine. But there's just like experiences because you're in it. I don't think as a kid you like realize like this isn't not wrong, but like this is a little bit different. And I'm picking up on this and like I will exhibit this sometime in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I want to change I want to change my answer to the hope thing because that's very stock. I think when I tell my story, what I want to give people is permission to ask for help and permission to be curious about the way they're living and if there's an easier and softer way to live.
Yeah.
Just permission. That's it. And from there, once someone has permission to ask for help, I think that's when the miracles start to happen.
Mm-hmm. When were your first experiences with substances and when did you start experimenting?
Again, like my answer here has changed. I think for me, there's drugs and alcohols and there's everything else in the world, right? There's phones, there's video games, there's behaviors, there's all of those things. And so I think if we're going to talk about the child, I have to acknowledge that there were times when I probably played too many video games. There were probably times when I would not leave the basketball court until I made X amount of shots in a row. And that was something that was programmed into my brain because when I made a shot, I got that little hit of dopamine and that made me feel better. And I would continue to do that because the more and more I did it, the better I felt.
Right.
So when it came time to drink, which was, 7th or 8th grade at a Christmas party, I've told this story a million times and it kind of goes, the year before, my friend Dave kind of offered me a beer. I went back to my parents. I was crying. I said, I can't believe this. They're drinking. I was rattled. I thought that meant that they were all
someone go get the Dare Bear right now.
Destined for failure. And the next year came around and the same offer presented itself and I was ready, and I had a couple pops that night. And I just remember I definitely did not black out. I did not get sick. I did not have that moment where I'm like running around the field. This is the greatest, feeling ever, which a lot of people describe as, as their first drunk. But I did, I went back to my parents and I lied. I lied about who I was with, what I was doing, and I got away with it. And so much of my story started in that moment because for the next 15 years, I knew that I could manipulate and lie certain situations. The people closest to me, and this is why I think family members struggle so much in the recovery process, they want to trust their loved ones.
Right.
So if I tell something to my mom, she's going to take that for what it is. And I knew that, and it's a really sick way of thinking. And so for the next however many years, just as much as I drank and drugged and ended up in some really compromised situations, I would say right there behind it was the lying and the manipulation.
Do you feel like she was genuinely, he's not doing these things? Or was it like, I don't want to think that my son was doing those things? No,
my mom knew.
Yeah.
She knew. And they parented me the way they parented me. I was never grounded. I suffered, I think, like emotional, like my consequences were emotional. Like my parents would sit me down and talk to me and they would be super disappointed. And I'm a very sensitive guy. So that would kind of like straighten me out for a little bit. I'll never forget. I was in high school. I was down the shore for junior prom or whatever it is. I drank all weekend. I was playing American Legion baseball. So I had to drive home from the shore the next morning and I stayed up all night drinking and I ended up falling asleep at the wheel and crashing my car in between two trees on the Atlantic City Expressway. And I probably should have died. And I remember getting home finally. My parents were so scared and so shook. The conversation was never about, hey, were you drinking last night? They were just happy that I was alive. And so I think they knew that I felt bad and that was enough for them.
Okay. But then it continues. Or how are you feeling about yourself at that time? Like you crashed the car and we're disappointed, but like we're so happy you're alive. Like how are you feeling about yourself?
High school was awesome. College was I had a blast. Yeah. I mean, there's no sugarcoating that. I was not feeling any certain way about any of it. I was just living my best life.
Yeah. So there's no outside of that, not really like repercussions to make you like.
I didn't think about getting sober until I got sober.
Really?
My experience was not one where like, I'm going to stop doing this and try to do that. And I'm going to drink wine and not beer and no more shots. That was never, it was full throttle until I got sober. I was, and I wasn't someone that hated myself. It wasn't, the mental health stuff came in like very much when I was at the end of the rope.
When did you find out you had a brain tumor?
2007.
Okay.
So I graduated college, got the first job out of school, worked there for a year. And this is one of those traumas that I never processed.
Mm-hmm.
I just never, and I've had to do some work around it because I didn't really understand at the time what was happening. So I basically was going to head to the shore with my buddies for Memorial Day, and I had been getting sick. I had been getting really sick. So an example would be I would close my eyes and see kaleidoscopes. This was not while I was drunk. This was all day, every day. And so I started to kind of put this on the table and tell my family about it, but they were convinced that it was just because I was hungover or not living well. I mean, I wasn't necessarily like the most, healthy guy because I was drinking all the time. And I had this intuition. I had this thought that something is actually wrong. So I made my own appointment, which was rare for a 20-whatever-year-old kid. I went to an imaging place, and the woman, I'll never forget, came back in the room white as a ghost and said, like, you can't, like, you're not going anywhere. Like, we need to get you to a hospital very, very quickly. And so they rushed me to University of Penn Hospital that night, and I was in surgery the next morning. I mean, it was that sudden. And naturally, I think some of the thoughts around me were, you're going to die. You might not make it out. I didn't have time to process any of that.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially to wind up in surgery the following day.
Yeah.
You said you weren't thinking about those things back then. You've kind of processed it now.
I've just taken so much from that experience and learned. I've kind of been able to put the pieces together, which is I'm fascinated by the human experience, right? Like, I'm fascinated about how we got to this seat today here where I'm talking to you. And so I oftentimes will take moments in my life and start to kind of dissect them. And I've certainly done that with the brain tumor. And what I've concluded about that is there's a couple things. One is, it was the first moment where I think I knew I had a substance abuse issue, where I knew I was an alcoholic, because I was separated from alcohol for the first time, physically separated. And so sitting in that hospital bed after the surgery, I get out, I'm healthy. I mean, I'm a mess. I have this thought that I can't wait to get out of this hospital bed so that I can go drink. And in addition to that, this nurse is putting something in my arm that I'm into,
Really?
Which was the Dilaudid and the morphine and the painkillers. And they had to, because I was in so much, in so much pain. And I knew, so this is where the manipulation comes in. When I got out of that hospital, I was going to be a quote unquote hero. You survived. Oh my God, you got a new lease on life. You're going to go out and do such great things. And in the back of my head, I said, this is just going to allow me to go drink and party the way that I really want to.
That's where your head went?
Yeah.
I'm sure after that, you're prescribed pain pills. Prior to this surgery, had you dabbled with like prescription medication at all?
Yeah, I mean, I had dabbled with everything, but there's a lot of bullshit out there. Like people want to say, is it genetic? Is it manufactured? I have no idea.
Right? It could be a million things all into one.
Who knows?
Factor, yeah.
Maybe it was a perfect storm, but I was presented with opioids for the first time in a consistent matter. And I'll say, those doctors saved my life. I would refer my best friend to do the surgery, Dr. Donald O'Rourke, University, but it was a different time. It was 2007. Doctors were not sitting you down and saying, hey, these are the medications I'm putting you on.
Right.
These are some of the things that may happen, and you might get addictive. They didn't tell me about the constipation. They didn't tell me about the withdrawals. They didn't tell me about any of that shit.
They didn't send you home with stool softener?
No.
It's like, why am I taking OxyContin with stool softener after my wisdom teeth have been removed?
Oh, God, that's a whole.
So what is your life like afterwards then?
I mean, look, I have the brain tumor. I'll say this. I remember being in the hospital for a couple weeks, and I'm talking about occupational therapy where I'm making grilled cheese, right? It was in a part of my brain where they were very nervous about some of my functionality coming out of it. And so I did a lot of occupational therapy. I get out of the hospital and I'm basically set up at home in my parents' house in a little bed. I kind of sat there for another month just eating pills like candy, and eventually went back to work. And I don't think I ever had this thought of, oh, I'm addicted to these things. I told myself the story that I needed them to function. And so I actually think there was a little period of time there where I was taking them as prescribed, the morphine, whatever else they had sent me home with. And then it got to a point where where I was done. Like they were not going to write another script. And I remember thinking to myself, I need to figure this out. And that's when I started kind of buying pills.
Not at the pharmacy.
Yeah.
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 I mean, in your relationships, were people picking up on stuff? Is it like one of those things where you can hide it for so long and then like it just doesn't work out?
Yes, people started to see some things, but at the same time, I wasn't alone in it. I mean, like we're 20 something guys, like, like all finally have paychecks, all finally, kind of like back home or living around Philly and being who we are. So, it wasn't uncharacteristic on a Saturday night to get a bag of blow and be kind of out, staying out all night and doing whatever. Yeah. I just woke up Sunday morning and kept the party going into Sunday night and then Monday and Tuesday, so I was a walking science project.
Yeah.
The uppers, the downers, how am I going to get through the day? And one of the stories I think a lot of people who get hooked on the shit tell themselves is I'm a better employee, when I have these pills in my system. And I do think that is true initially because of the high that you get when you first start doing a Roxicet or an OxyContin. That wears down, your tolerance gets higher, and then you have to kind of restart the cycle. And that's why eventually people end up doing heroin because it's cheaper and it's just as effective.
Yeah. So are you still living around your family at this point?
Yeah, my family's around. My family's still around. I mean, I grew up in South Jersey. We're kind of all around, you know? So
did they pick up on anything once they did move from alcohol?
My parents are like most parents.
Yeah.
We deal at Release, my organization, with the families all day, every day. And it's the hardest job in the world to be a parent with someone who's struggling because you want to believe them. You want to trust them. And my parents did for many years. They had no reason not to.
I think it's like my biggest
Your first thought as a parent is not going to be, oh, my son is ripping painkillers.
Yeah.
My first thought is going to be, is he okay? Is he having stomach issues? Is he sleeping okay? Is he eating well? Is he having problems in his relationships? We're going to go down every single avenue until we finally get to the thing where it's like, oh my God. And that's why there's so much regret and guilt and shame from family members when they find out because they're like, oh my, I should have known. But that's putting way too much pressure.
Yeah. And also a lot of like rewiring too when you're working with families while someone's getting treatment. Cause it's like, honestly, it's my biggest fear as a mother is my children having to deal with this because I'm like, I can barely handle like disciplining you. You are my heart, you are my body, you are my soul. To have to tell you no, like to hear stories when parents are like, I was banging on the door and my mom and dad wouldn't let me in. I'm like, I cannot imagine how your parents were feeling on the other side.
Yeah.
Because like when you're dealing with mental health issues, when you're dealing with addiction, it feels so isolating. Like it's only happening to you, but everyone around you is kind of experiencing it at some like magnitude.
Yeah. So they knew something. I will say this for families, if you are listening, like they knew something was wrong. They just didn't know that it was this.
Yeah.
And that's the story, I think 9 out of 10 times, which is just so hard. There's no playbook on this thing.
Oh, no. And it's different for every single person. I think the best everyone can do is share their stories and offer every help that you can and hope that some way like people are able to latch onto something and then find what helps and works for them.
But that's why, I mean, like Brittany, who you work with before the show today, is telling me like the reason we do this podcast is to try to help people, is to try to get the message out there, to try to get the stories out there. And like, hell yeah, because there are some antiquated and I guess some tests we can do to have a pretty good sense if someone has a substance use disorder. I mean, Johns Hopkins has like the classic alcoholism, like the questions that you can ask, but you can't put me in a machine and say, oh, he's a heroin addict.
Right.
Right. And so that's why it's so important for me to continue to kind of share my story, because there's our field, behavioral healthcare, the people like the helpers, we are dealing with an impossible mission. And what might work for me is not going to work for the guy next to me. And then what works for him might not work for the girl down the street. It's just, it's so complicated and confusing, which is why I go back to my answer change, like that permission to ask for help and start to be curious about my relationship to drugs and alcohol.
Yeah. Or just like substances, people, everything. So it sounds like you were just keeping on trucking because work's going good to you. Like stuff's going okay on the outside, but maybe not so much on the inside. What is that point then where you're like you wind up in treatment?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, one of the mantras that I've like, since I got sober, I've lived by is keep going. And I actually think that really applies to my use. I was
keep going.
I was a freight train. I mean, I truly and I was able to show up. I was able to get things done. And but at the end of the day, if I didn't have my thing, if I didn't have my fix,
it's going to come crumbling down.
Not going to come crumbling down. I'm just going to, I'm going to feel like garbage. And then I'm going to have to work even harder the next day to try and figure it out. And that's why, I don't know why I'm thinking so much about the parents, but like for me, it got to me to a place where I'm pawning my dad's, 19, whatever, University of Miami ring. And they made those rings with real gold back in the day.
Damn.
So I was pumped. They gave me a lot of cash for that thing.
For that one.
Yeah. That doesn't mean I'm a bad person. I was just desperate.
So yeah, when was that time? Like what is the situation where you wind up like you go to treatment for 5 months, but it doesn't sound like.
No. So I mean, the quick timeline is I graduate college. I have the brain tumor a year after. So that's 2007. I end up getting married to my college sweetheart in 2009, right? We have the big wedding at the Jersey Shore. So it wasn't a totally crazy long period. And so in 2009, and then by 2010, the fall of 2010, my mom and wife at the time are out at a local spot having a Chardonnay talking about life. And one of my buddies comes in and kind of says, hey, do you know what's going on with Zac? He kind of outed me. And so that night, my mom came to my house where I was living and confronted me. And I didn't fight it. I said, you're 100% right. In fact, I'm going to go to treatment right now. And I walked out the house. I mean, it's a crazy story. I said, and there's a treatment program down in South Jersey. They have these billboards everywhere, and it's hilarious because some of them are just so terrible. But I guess they work because I got in my car and I drove to this treatment center and basically knocked on the door and said, I'm here to get help. So we don't do walk-ins.
That's wild.
Yeah, we don't do walk-ins to treatment.
Like I realize it's 2010, but like that's wild.
Yeah, well, you can't just walk. I guess there are some walk-in clinics, but they're like, we don't do.
Yeah.
I think that was the first and last time they had someone just show up and say like, I'm here for help without like calling. And so
they let you in.
I vividly kind of remember, having a party for one that night in my really beat up Chevy Malibu. And then the next morning was able to admit and stayed there for a month. And, the seed was planted.
So when you went into treatment, what was that first day? Have you like had any form of therapy prior to going into that treatment facility?
That's a great question that I never thought of. I don't know.
Yeah. So what was your idea of treatment prior to walking in those doors?
I didn't have.
Yeah.
Like I give myself credit. I've always been pretty open-minded, right? So I knew I needed it. I was not fighting that. I mean, I was a sick dude. I was sick. I was really, by that point, my life, I was going to do something silly that was going to hurt a lot of people if I didn't end up in rehab. But
Yeah, I heard you had said once that like you didn't feel like you were living anymore. You're just like waiting to die.
Yeah. Yeah. That was probably in between the two treatments. So I went to treatment twice and the first one was 28 days. And I got to say, like, look, treatment gets a lot of hate, and there's stigma around it. And people will say, my son or daughter went to treatment and learned how to do drugs. Like that is my experience. Like I went to treatment the first time and learned about heroin. Like that is a fact of my story.
Damn.
I also learned about AA. I also learned about therapy. I also learned that there is people out there that are living differently than me. Right.
Yeah.
So the seed was planted. And so I'm grateful for that experience, despite the fact that I didn't stay sober. The thing that did happen coming out of that is my wife at the time set a boundary because she came to the family program and paid attention and said, I'm not I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
And she said it in a way that is so beautiful. It's like, I love you. I don't love this version of you. And so I'm going to protect myself. And, the progression was crazy for me.
In what way?
So 2010, 2011, I spent both of those Thanksgivings in rehab. The first time I get out, it's December, January of late 10, early 11. And I was given a aftercare plan that consisted of going to an outpatient program, going to 12-step meetings, kind of your stock, aftercare plan, which those things actually work if you show up and do them, right? Like that's the I always laugh at the people that say like that didn't work for me, but did you actually do it?
Right. Did you stick with it?
Like I was going to IOP hot, drunk, it's like, that's not going to stick.
Yeah.
But the long and short of it was I was given this aftercare plan and I wasn't ready. Like I knew in my soul, and it's something I always talk to our patients and our clients about, is like, if you're feeling this thing in here, say it. And I wasn't able to vocalize it. I wasn't able to say,
there's still something there that needs.
Yeah. Maybe I can put the drugs down and just drink. Maybe I could smoke weed.
There was still some like, what ifs I could maybe someday
I've met people that is their story.
Yeah.
I've met heroin addicts that can go out to a bar now and have a couple pops and like, I can't.
Yeah.
That ain't my story. Any mood or mind altering, sayonara. But yeah, I got out and, 2-3 month, whatever the timeline is, after I woke up one morning, my wife's a teacher. She went to work. That strange mental blank spot, like that thing came to me and I said, I'm going to go to the liquor store and buy a pint of vodka. And I remember getting this pint of vodka, sitting in my car, drinking it in one sip, like just down the hatch. And within an hour, I was driving into Camden, New Jersey to buy dope, to buy heroin for the first time. It was like that quick.
So then do you start using regularly?
Yeah, there was no
like, yeah, okay. So
yeah, look, the way that I knew how to get heroin was crazy because it was the same place that I drove in high school to buy like dime bags of like weed. When I was smoking weed, like the weed today, these kids, like they don't know how good they have it. Like we had to work for our
ditch
shit.
Weed.
And it was shit. Like we were picking stems out and seeds and it was probably sprayed with Raid and we're cracking it up and smoking a joint or smoking a blunt like a civilized person. These kids today, they're sitting around vaping on these things and they're dabbing.
There's electronics and charging
I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
What is this shit?
Whole meals being sold. Yeah.
So it was like this, the set was third dumpster on the right. Like I knew you turn onto the street, it's the third dumpster on the right. I did it. I remembered it like it was yesterday from high school. I pulled in and this guy, walked to my car, larger than life. And the first thing he did was make sure I was not a cop. And the second thing he did is said, what do you need? And I I shot my shot. I was like, do you sell dope? Yeah. How much? So I picked it up and I remember I was terrified to do it. And so I put it like in my car and I waited that night until my wife went to sleep and then went out to the car and got it. And she heard like the car, deet, deet. And it like woke her up or she came downstairs. She's like, what's going on? And I had a line on the table. So I technically got caught before I even got high. And then at that point she set her boundary, which I'm grateful for. And the next 8 months from really January of 11 to August of 11, when I finally get sober, are some all-time behavior.
Oh, okay. Did you go into treatment for that? Is that with the 5 months of? Is that when you were in?
Yeah, I ended up in treatment in August of 2011.
Yeah,
yeah. So for that, they talk about the progression, and I just like there was nothing off the table during those 8 or 9 months, whatever it was, and it was anything to put the next one in me.
Oh, really? What are the things that you were doing? I mean, is this affecting your relationships? Because your wife had set that boundary, but it sounds like you were just...
Yeah, no, at this point, everyone knows.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been to rehab. There is no secret. Zach is fucked up.
And you have no want at this point to like go back in prior to like the 8 months of...
Yeah, I mean, it's... All I can say is this. When I when I get a taste of something I like, there is nothing that is going to stop me from continuing to seek that feeling. And as I've matured in my career and started to learn more about brain chemistry and dopamine and what drives humans and happiness and all that stuff, I just believe that I have a really bad substance use disorder. Like I have the worst variety of this thing where if I put, and this is why I still, when I go out to eat, will question if the meal is cooked with alcohol.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going out and eating a tiramisu or what, because it's just not worth it. I get a drop of that shit and I'm liable to go. And that's a personal decision for me. And so during that 8 months, it's like a couple things happen. One, I learn about the street life. And what the street life does is it tells you that you don't need a drug dealer. You don't need a crew. You don't need anyone. You just drive into the set and you become loyal to a set. So I had my set that I went to and I knew not to go to another set because that's when the infighting starts.
Okay. Is that like a group of people, like a set?
A drug set.
Okay.
Yeah. So like that's where they set up shop and they sell drugs. Gotcha. And I am a customer of a certain set. So I'm going to that set where I'm probably in some trouble and the kind of trouble that I don't want to be in. So I settle in and I don't need anyone or anything now. I can just go and shop there all day, every day. And so that's what I did.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for the listeners to hear. So one of the things I'm really fucking passionate about is this idea. There's these words that are very stigmatized, like heroin. People, I say the word heroin and people are like, oh, no, don't say that. It's like, why? Heroin is just another form. Like if you think about it, hospitals today are actually like kind of like legally injecting heroin into patients all over the country. It's just in painkiller form. I mean, that's what they're doing. So for me, the progression actually makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
If I'm buying an OxyContin, an 80 milligram OxyContin, which is one pill and gets me high for, half a day, they're charging me $1 a milligram. So that pill is $80. Or I could go and get 8 bags of heroin, $10 a bag, and that's going to last me a longer period of time. I'm not going to get sick.
Yeah.
To the logical mind, it actually makes a ton of sense. So I was snorting heroin because it was cheaper and just as effective. And then the progression resets again when you start injecting it.
Okay.
This podcast is brought to you by Recovery.com. Recovery.com is a place where anyone can find mental health or addiction treatment options specific to them. You can filter by location, price, insurance coverage, therapy type, mental health condition, levels of care, and so much more. Recovery.com is the best place to find mental health or addiction treatment for anyone, anywhere.
So it all is just a progression.
Right.
And it doesn't mean I'm a bad person.
No.
And it doesn't mean that your son or daughter is a bad person if they're doing heroin and they end up in rehab for that instead of drinking alcohol.
Right.
And that's a message that I try to deliver because parents are so concerned about the PR around their kids.
What the substance is.
Doesn't matter. I'll tell you this, and people come for my neck on this one, but I'll say it anyway. Weed is the worst. The weed and the gambling, those two, like my prediction for the next 5 to 10 years, what you're going to see, the non-developed mind smoking that weed. You talk about your kids, I talk to my buddies who have kids that are getting to that age, 12, 13, 14, like I would be way, like if you told me, do I let my kid have a hit of weed or a sip of a beer? Like I'm choosing a sip of a beer 10 out of 10 times. Because if I could just paint the picture, one hit of marijuana that is so strong on an adolescent mind can short circuit that brain forever, send them into a marijuana-induced psychosis that they may or may not come back from. And that is what we're seeing time and time again in treatment all over this country. It's really, really scary.
Especially with like the regulation, like the legalization of it from state to state too. My daughter's in middle school and she's told me, I was like shook because the oldest grade in her school is 8th. And she's like, I've seen vape pens in the bathrooms. I'm like, you guys are at max 13. I don't know how this is happening. It's insane. So
it's insane. And I'll just say on the legalization thing, like quickly is I don't give a shit about that. Like I actually, if you're 40 years old and your frontal lobe is fully developed and you want to smoke pot, be my guest. I am sharply and strictly, when I talk about marijuana and the dangers of it, focused on the 12 to 17-year-old, the 11 to 17-year-old, the young kid who can literally burn their entire life to the ground with one hit of weed.
So at the end of that 8-month stretch, what gets you into this next rehabilitation
God? Do you believe in God? That's what got me there.
Yes.
I mean,
did you walk into treatment again?
No, I mean, there's a story. There's a great story, but it's like, it doesn't make any sense. It makes zero sense. And so, look, it's an emotional question for me to answer because like, why?
Yeah.
Why am I here? Like, why do I get to sit here? And I could get choked talking about it because there's been so many people that we've lost. Mm-hmm. And why do I get to sit in this chair and talk to you? I try not to understand it because there's really no reason. Yeah. And that's the thing that's fucked up about recovery. And that's the thing that's crazy about this thing is that, like, I genuinely believe there are people that do try their hardest, that genuinely like do the things that they're asked to do. Mm-hmm. And they are no longer here. Yeah. And there are people that, half-ass it and you get sober.
Yeah.
And I have no idea. So the story that makes no sense and the things that I can point to as like my pinnacles and what my parents did right.
Yeah.
Is like, they never gave up on me. They loved hard. They never made me feel like a bad person. I heard them. Mm-hmm. All those times they said, will you get help? Will you stop? Like, I heard them. My body, my soul felt it. Mm-hmm. And so by August of 2011, my habit is whatever, $500 a day. Like, I am running hard. I'm using every drug under the sun. The behaviors are really sad and scary. And so we're basically on a family trip at the Jersey Shore where I will be, when I leave here, I'll spend a couple, like with the family. Yeah. That's, so, but I left the shore and, because I was going to get sick. And there was a hurricane coming up the coast. And I was like, okay, if this hurricane comes and I get stuck here, this is going to be bad news for everyone. Yeah. So I take off and I don't really tell anyone. And it was behavior that everyone was kind of used to. And I basically go and I cop and I mean, like, I was so alone. I parked my car on the side of the road. I bought a bunch of scratch off lottery tickets. I had some really cheap vodka. I had a stem that I was smoking crack out of. I had the dope and I was just sitting there kind of like scratching lottery. Like, it was such a sad sight. And I got arrested. Cops came, they pulled up on me. And I remember the one kid I kind of like loosely knew. And I tried to talk my way out of it. He's like, Zach, stop.
The cop?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stop. Look at your life, man. You need help. And I got arrested. They took my car and I got to the police station. Do you want to call someone? I said, nope. Well, you have a call. Do you want it? Nope. And I woke up the next morning and they let me leave based on whatever condition. And I walked back into Camden, which is a neighborhood where I was kind of getting high, and I stayed there. I kind of like mingled around there for 3-4, the timing of it, I don't know. Maybe it was 2 nights, but like, I always say I was sleeping on the street, but I was not homeless. Like, I had a home, I had family. I had, I just was, that's how I was choosing to live. And I woke up one morning and I had 2 drug dealers that I was kind of hanging around with, Dog and Bro. And they were like, the thing I'll say about these drug dealers is they were the sweetest. They were just like, they were really just trying to put food on their family's table. Yeah. Like, there was a job for them. Like, they didn't do the shit, Now, I mean, drug dealers at large, I think, harm a lot of people, but
Dog and bro were special.
From a human perspective, from a very human, I saw them.
Yes.
I saw them. And I stole one of my dad's checks. I went down to this bank and, the bank teller, when I gave her this check, her name's Rhonda Jackson. I'll never forget. I've told this story a gazillion times. So when I tell it, I feel like everyone's heard it. But the moral of the story is I go into this bank. Rhonda Jackson is this bank teller that has never met me before. She's never seen me before. I give her this blank check. She says, "Thank you, sir." She goes back behind, wherever she goes, and she calls my dad. And so the number, because it's his check, and the number on the check or in the bank is to his office. And so it's a Saturday morning. It's 10 o'clock. My dad is at the office because he doesn't know where else to go. An unknown number calls. He doesn't answer, like who picks up unknown, like he picks it up. It's Rhonda. And she says, "Sir, I have your son here and I don't know how long I can keep him here, but you need to get here now." And I'm walking around the bank, looking around this beautiful thing.
Where's your lollipops?
Yeah. Where's your lollipops? When am I getting my $5,000?
Yeah. That's a big check.
And my dad walked in and I saw him white as this tissue box, white as this Recovery.com mug, just ghostly. And he got to me and he's just he put his arm on my arm and he's like, "Son, we're going home." And it was when I say God, when I say moment of clarity, there was a visceral feeling that I had. Something left my body in that moment. And I was struck willing. I was struck sober. And I ended up going to treatment a couple of days later. I went to Caron out in Pennsylvania, where I spent 5 months in PA. And I'll say about that experience is it sucked. I mean, it absolutely sucked, but what a gift.
Did you detox there?
Yeah, detox. Yeah, all of it. And I was sick.
The detox has to be an extremely difficult part. I'm not going to ask you to do you remember? But what are some of those first memories?
You can ask how,
Detox, I mean, do you remember, what was that experience for you? What was your body going through during detox? And where's your head at this point?
I mean, I can give the PG version or I can give the X-rated version. I mean, the X-rated version is it's the worst. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I mean, the first thing that I will share, that you can cut this if you want, or you can blast it out to the interwaves. When you are an opioid addict, you get extremely constipated. So there were weeks that would go by where I wouldn't use the restroom. No bowel movements. You get to detox and it's the reverse. So the floodgates are open, and so that's the first thing. And your body is so sick. I think the word detox, you're literally trying to flush all these toxins out of your system. And so for, that first couple weeks, it was it's sweating, it's sleepless nights, it's fear, anxiety, guilt, shame. So it's the emotional pain in conjunction with just the physical hell. That in itself is a spiritual experience. I mean, of the not so sexy variety.
What is your mind going through mentally? Where's your head at? What are you thinking about?
I would say if I look back through my life, I was a little bit of an anxious kid. I was a happy kid, but I was anxious. I was nervous. I always needed validation. I always needed someone to tell me good job. So in order to kind of keep me going. And I'm still like that today. I still in my relationships ask for that, and say part of my needs are to be told that I'm doing the right thing, to be told that I am going in the right direction. And so when you are using substances the way that I use substances, my brain was going to the highest of highs with dopamine, and then it would come back down and then I would get high again. Right. And that's why the brain is so affected. And so when I got into treatment, I didn't know this at the time, but there was no more spikes. There was no more getting high. And my baseline on a daily for dopamine was call it 20.
Yeah.
There's a real measurement, but I'm going to botch it. So I won't even try to sound smart, but call it 20.
Yeah.
I was just sitting there. So you talk about anxiety, you talk about depression, you talk about guilt, you talk about shame, you talk about feeling worthless. You feel about, had it not been for the community, right? So that's the one thing in treatment that I always tell people. you can take nothing from this experience. You're going to be around some people that are going through some similar shit. And the power in that shoulder to shoulder mentality is the best. So the community, and then the behavioral healthcare professionals, like the clinicians, the doctors, the people that said like, Zac, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, Zac, I'm going to love you today. So, one person loves you. I'm like, all right, cool. And the whole saying is kind of like, we're going to love you until you can love yourself. And it takes time.
Yeah.
And that's why people throw in the towel, especially I think for me, as I've gotten sober and I've put the substances down, the mental health journey is one that's scary. I mean, as humans, we all have it. We all go through that. And so
it's a lot. It's a lot of like shame. I feel like you have to peel away to even be able to start. You have to peel away shame to apologize. You have to peel away shame to like look at yourself sitting there sober with all of those feelings for the first time is a lot. And you're like, I can't turn to a substance. This is that time where we don't do that because we're learning how to not do that. It's like you have to have that team there. Besides just detoxing and being sober, you have to learn to live again. You have to learn to like create those hits for yourself without reaching for a substance.
Yeah.
What are some of the tools that you grabbed in treatment to do that for you?
Treatment works.
Yeah.
I think it's important to say that. First and foremost, treatment actually absolutely works. I am a huge proponent of it. I believe very strongly in the idea that our bodies need to be physically separated from the substances, right? And put into an environment where we can actually start to heal. And so from a medical component, like I picked up a few medications in my early treatment that helped me feel okay, to make me feel comfortable. I had like a physical, I started to learn a little bit about what was going on in my body, like just basic things.
Like caring about yourself.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Taking care of yourself.
Which is oftentimes overlooked. And that's where I think treatment we miss a lot.
Yeah.
I believe it needs to be this holistic approach, right? Like the whole idea that you're going to go to treatment and I've said this a million times, but like, hey, go to rehab. Here's a carton of cigarettes and a pint of ice cream and just like do that. And you're going to like everything. And there's a degree of that, which may be true. Like we don't want to beat people up for maybe indulging in a Newport or whacking back a Ben and Jerry's. But at the end of the day, like, let's get healthy.
Right. Right. You can have your chocolate fudge brownie and live a life that you're striving to be better at.
Yeah. So the tools, I mean, there were spiritual tools, prayer, meditation that I picked up. There were clinical tools, right? How to process certain things, how to work through feelings, how to stop the monkey mind.
Swinging from branch to branch.
Yeah. Yeah. And then physical. I mean, like I started, I've run 16 marathons in my sobriety, and I started running as a guy who was, 250 pounds, which for me was, heavier than I like to be in treatment. And I started with one step, and those little wins ultimately kind of allowed me to get through.
So,
and the family, I mean, my family showed up. They came to campus. They like supported me. And so seeing that was obviously next level.
Yeah. It sounds like your family was always going to be
best,
there for you. Yeah. They sound amazing.
They're a family though. We all have our shit, you know?
Yeah. It wouldn't be family if you didn't have your shit. So post-treatment, so you're sober, you have established your sobriety, and then you end up on a reality show. And I'm wondering how that affects your mental health afterwards, because I was like, okay, so like treatment's 5 months in a place where you get to like concentrate on yourself, really kind of like reworking your brain to care about yourself and to like function in this world at the way you want to live your life. And opposed to that is like a reality show where you're kind of separated from stuff. In both situations, you come out into this world. In this one, it's like you already knew that you had struggled with mental health stuff. What was that like coming out already somebody who's been open about that?
Yeah. So like a lot happened between leaving rehab and going on television, about 8 years. And so I should say that when I left rehab, I moved to New York City, which for me was something I never thought I would do. So to the person out there that thinks getting sober or working on it, whatever, it has allowed me to make like decisions that are so large and have been so important in my life that I never thought I'd be able to make, and given me this life that's just like, beyond my wildest dreams. And so I spend 8 years in New York. I start working in behavioral health care. I start my company Release, which is the hat I'm wearing, and just start to kind of chop wood, carry water. Like I am obsessed with all this stuff, with recovery, with behavioral health care, with helping, and my entire existence 24/7 is really this stuff. Maybe what I should say is like, I'm doing a ton of work. I'm doing it professionally. And I am also living a life that is like, I'm going to the Eagles games. I'm going to the concerts. I'm like running the marathons. Yes. I'm building this life that I never thought was possible. All the dreams that I had in my active addiction are coming true. And so fast forward. Yeah. I mean, look, it's COVID. It's 2020. I'm 36 at the time. I'm 41 now. So this is 5 years ago, which is crazy to say. And my sister does not like that her older brother is single and living in New York City and like very resistant to like settling down. And so she's like, I went and I did this thing. I don't know that she did this thing, which is like apply me for the Bachelorette. And so I basically walk into my apartment one day in the middle of COVID. LA comes up on the phone. I pick up. It's a producer from the show. She said one thing. I don't even remember what it was, but she like kept me on the phone long enough to say like, all right, just tell me more.
Yeah.
Like it was just like humor me kind of thing.
It's 2020. I got a lot of time right now.
Well, that was part of it, right?
Right. So honestly, yeah.
Like who the hell's doing anything? Like you're going to tell me I can go kick it in the desert with 30 other dudes? So like nothing
LFG,
else.
Like let's go now. Yes.
Yeah. So I got into the process, which is what it is. And people are always very curious about it. It's not that cool. I mean, it's just like, you do some interviews, you talk to some people, they select you. And so the question I think you asked is around like mental health and sobriety as it pertains to that journey. And I got to tell you, like never once worried.
Really? Nice.
Never once. I mean, and it's like people over dramatize this thing. They're like, were you worried about the guys drinking around you? I'm like, no. If I'm worried about the guys drinking around me, then like I'm not living the life that I want to live, because my sobriety tells me that I can go anywhere and be with anyone and be around anything so long as I'm keeping it front and center in my life.
Yeah.
So if I would have showed up in that desert and like had these like crazy breakdowns, like I was actually like, this is incredible.
Love that.
I can do this. Like this is easy. This is light work. And then you come to find out, you like make some connections, you meet some people, you make some friends, you have deep conversations. And so I don't have like the actual experience. I will tell you, 5 years of kind of being in the world post television show, has there been moments where I've had to really evaluate like my relationship with social media, my relationship with the world at large, who I'm giving my time to? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because once you go through an experience like that, what you realize is that there's a lot of people who you weren't actually that close with that want to kind of claim you and claim your friendship and claim some bullshit thing. And it's like, that's strange because like, and it kind of comes back to your third party, like, oh, I heard you were really good friends with so-and-so. I'm like, who?
Brand new to me.
Yeah. Like that doesn't, and so shit starts to happen that you start to question, and then it goes into self-worth. It goes into self-esteem. It goes into like, what is my real identity? But I would say largely positive experience and largely, just given me an opportunity to kind of have a microphone around some of this stuff.
Yeah. And in 2020, I feel like with people out there on TV or just personalities in general, like people could say, like, oh, I'm sober. But I don't know a lot of people that were out there like, I'm sober, I'm living this lifestyle and I want to share it and I want to just be open with it. I thought that was super cool. I think that's really awesome. I love seeing that more and more with people, not just like I'm sober, but like the stories behind it. Cause I feel like when people are able to connect to that, especially with, I don't know, just like influential voices, like people see you and they may not have heard your story and they just think you're like this really cool guy out there doing stuff. And then they hear that and they're like, oh my God, like I have that too. Or like I've experienced that too, or someone in my family has too. And it helps build that like little connection and community. So I really appreciate you going out there so openly and talking about that. Also, just like how prior to going in there, because there was that long stretch, like how did you approach relationships with like friends and other relationships when you are now sober, living this life and just like navigating that?
Yeah. I'll just say quickly on the thank you. I think, telling my story in the way that I've been able to has been a gift. I laugh because the producers leading up to like the time when I was going to kind of share my story were like, are you nervous about this? Are you in fear? How do you feel? I'm like,
have you been to AA?
No, dude, I'm good. Like, it's just my story. Yeah. This is like just who I am.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of comfortable with that. Yeah. And if America, whoever doesn't like what I say, then like, I'm comfortable with that too. Yeah. But like, I don't have the luxury of making up some bullshit story about who I am because I'll probably drink over that shit.
Ooh, yeah.
And so like, it was funny because I think they expected it to be a lot more nerve-wracking for me than it was. And it's why I always encourage people to tell their story. It's someone will say to me like, I only have 500 followers on Instagram, and I'll say, close your eyes, think of a room of 500 people. Like, yeah,
that's really cool to think about it like that.
Like, you are about to talk to 500 people, and if one of those hear your story and they feel connected to it and they go out and they make a positive change in their life, then telling your story was worth it. And so like, that's the part of storytelling and being here today that just gets me fired up, because I feel like it just takes one. And then on the relationships, like the second part of your question there, I think my friends are my friends. Yeah. My family are my family. Like, I've made new friends since coming off. I've had to lean harder back into the people that really know me and really love me. And I think as an adult, one of the things that the life book probably doesn't tell you is that there's so much focus on the romantic relationship, right?
Yeah.
Who you're going to marry, who you're going to spend your life with, which is fine. And I think some data around that suggests that like, maybe 1 out of every 2 of those work.
Yeah.
I would say that relationships in general, friendships, the numbers are probably similar. Like relationships come and go. And I'm someone that believes every relationship should carry on until the end of time. And so regardless of TV or not, I think as humans, we grieve and we have trauma and we have people come into our lives and they hurt us or we hurt them or it just doesn't work out. And that's all okay. Like, that's where I'm getting to in my life today. Like, it's all okay.
Yeah. So currently you have Release Recovery, or co-founder. You also have your own podcast as well, where you're sharing stories with people and educating too. I really like about your social media, the education aspect, the destigmatization. Is there stuff in your experience with treatment that you're like, I really want to be able to share this here with people?
Yeah. I mean, in its purest form, Release was based off of my treatment experience, which is that time is the most valuable kind of thing that you can give someone. That was my initial kind of thesis around recovery, time and community. And so like a longer term, highly structured, kind of higher end transitional living model is where we started back when I founded the organization 8 years ago. And I did the whole founder thing. I burnt my life down, broke up with the girlfriend, moved out of New York City, bought the house in Westchester County, which is just north of New York, and moved in, and I was cooking the eggs and running the groups, and probably, had some family members and some friends who were slightly worried about me. And there were some manic moments.
Passion, man.
Yeah. Passion and just whatever. And so learned a lot in those kind of like founding and formative years. And to today where we are running treatment programs. We have a headquartered office in New York City on 19th Street where I sit. We still have in New York City 30 some odd higher end kind of transitional living beds where everyone gets a case manager, they're drug tested, we help them get back to our goal there is really, we want to mimic a 40-hour week, right? Yeah. So are you going to school? Are you volunteering? What are you actually doing? And then also we want to get you connected to a community, whether that's 12-step or SMART or Refuge or whatever it is, so that when you leave here, you have a fellowship around you that's going to carry you on into existence. And then what's happened in Westchester, which is a kind of like the OG, is we've really started to operate treatment programs up there, which has been incredible. And I think I realized at some point, like as I matured as a business owner and a founder and a CEO, and I realized that like the clinical and medical component of this thing is just so critical, because as I alluded to, like the marijuana is getting stronger, the drugs are getting stronger, the mental health is getting more significant and more pronounced. And so we need some really smart people.
Yeah.
And so we've really been able to combine the kind of like clinical and medical, I'll call it excellence, because I believe in my team, with the many years of kind of like like I know how to do the residential piece. Like I know how to build community. I know how to keep people safe. I know how to do that. And so what's happened up in Westchester is we've really built a long-term treatment program where people kind of reside in one of our residential settings, and then they program with us at the clinic during the day. And, it's your traditional kind of like Florida or Minnesota model, if you're familiar with those terms, which basically means what we hope to recreate is a healthy home life.
Yeah.
Right. Like we hope to recreate, because a lot of these folks, we're seeing a lot of adoption, right? We're seeing a lot of broken homes. We're seeing, so like we're trying to give them some sense of belonging and some sense of community. And then, obviously having them linked up with a therapist and a doc and in their groups, and doing a bunch of experiential stuff and getting them out into the world. And so it's been awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I love it. We're looking at some cool things now to keep growing and keep expanding. And I think as a founder in this space, one of the things that I continue to kind of think about is like, can you scale and can you keep culture? Because scale to me is a scary word that business people kind of think about. And like scale kind of carries this stigma that it's going to get worse. Like as we scale, like we're going to have to make some sacrifices. And so for me, it's like, can we scale, but kind of keep the magic and keep the culture and keep, and we're working really, really hard. I always laugh. People are like, are you still associated with Relapse? I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like I was sending an email out at 10:30,
Yes.
So
honestly, I think my first time communicating with you was about 3 years ago when I was working. Well, I still work here, but like I was reaching out about profiles, and I had called Release Recovery to make sure like we were showing the correct information. And then someone's like, "Oh, Zach." I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "Do you know who that is?" I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." But yeah. It's just, you are in
nice?
there. You were.
Okay, good.
But yeah, like you are up in there. I think that's really cool. And you've also got Release Recovery Foundation, where you're raising money. You've raised over $1.6 million for scholarships.
That's the best.
Yes. And it's much needed too, because it's like when people are ready, when families are ready, when kids are ready, when the financial aspect is that thing standing in the way, that's incredible that you've been able to do that. Also, just underserved communities in general. Really appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. The foundation has been a gift, truly. And I'm really proud of it. Like it's probably the thing I'm most proud of in my life, because I know we're doing it right. I know we're running it ethically. I know I'm not making a buck from it, like that's for damn sure. And I know that we are helping a lot of people who otherwise couldn't get it. And we do very small amounts of scholarships to our programs, very small. But most of that money goes out to other treatment providers, so we'll get these calls and we'll send them to an High Watch or a Ashley or a Caron or a Mountainside or Silver Hill or someone in the region that, we've worked with and built partnerships with. And the cool thing there has been our treatment partners have also said, like, if you're going to do this work, like we're going to basically give you some contracted rates that are really good so that you can afford to get these people help. And so it's been really cool to watch people rally around. And the thing I'll say about the foundation is there's two kind of signature things. One is we have 115 bibs for the New York City Marathon, which, New York City's year over year, the largest marathon in the world. We're one of the biggest charity partners. We're putting substance abuse and mental health on the map in the biggest city in the world.
That's
Period.
awesome.
End of story.
Yeah, that's amazing.
New York Roadrunners knows me, knows us, knows what we do. So let's go.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
then the second part is we do this gala in May that I expect to see everyone from Recovery.com at this May.
Gala?
And like the vision, like I've been to a lot of galas, I've been to a lot of dinners, and there's nothing wrong with the white tablecloth and the, that thing.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
Those are elegant and nice, but we kind of take a different approach in that we throw a party.
Okay, cool.
Like at a club in New York City, downtown. And the whole thought there is like, whether you are sober or not, you're welcome.
Yes.
We love for sober people to go because it shows them that they can be in a room where people are drinking and are dancing and are having a good time. And they're not, like they don't have to resign themselves to hanging out with sober people their whole lives.
Yeah.
And so those are the two things that I just am really proud of.
That's awesome. You should be proud of those.
Thank you.
They're amazing things, doing amazing things for other people and a lot of other people that really need it. So we really appreciate that.
Thank you.
I imagine there's a lot of someones out there right now watching this, and they are at a point where they can't really imagine what their life could be like on the other side of recovery, on the other side of asking for help. What is something that you would want them to know to help encourage that?
I wish I had the words. Yeah. I wish I knew what that thing to say to that person would be, because it's, they talk a lot about planting seeds, and it's like Grace, who works for us, is in the room with us right now. She does a lot of our marketing. And like, I think about her story, and I think about my story, and I think about some of the other folks at Release that have, gone through the sobriety process. And like, sometimes it's not some big formulated, like we just get to a place where we're sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that window opens for a second. And the hope is that when that window opens, there is someone there to pick up the phone or talk to you. What I can tell you is that this life is incredible, and you have permission to live your life however the hell you want. I'm not here to shove any modality or treatment philosophy or program of recovery down your throat. I'm really not. I know how I did it. I'll share openly around how I did it. I know my experience. I have also seen people do it in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
I've seen people come in to recovery who are like, screw AA, I'm not doing that shit, and then a month later, I see them writing a 4-step at the kitchen table.
Yeah.
And I've seen people that come in all fired up for AA, and then, 3 months later, they're like deep into, a Buddhist practice, and they're at Refuge Recovery, and they're like finding a community. So like, it doesn't have to be a certain way.
Yeah.
And no matter where you go, what recovery street, this is what I would tell them, you go down, you're going to find some really cool, really interesting people who have some incredible stories. You're going to laugh a ton. I mean, I will never forget like those early dinners at the diner where I like hate myself so much, but I can't stop laughing because like the dude with 15 years sober is just like basically doing stand-up comedy in the diner, And so it's like, there's hope there. And if you get to a place where you need to ask for help or want to ask for help, there's guys like me, there's girls like you, there's people in this world that are ready. I mean, Recovery.com is, from my understanding, like built to be that for people, So you double click on that, and there's a ton of resources and a ton of different programs that they're working with to make care accessible and also give, I think, the consumer an idea of the types of care being provided at the various programs, which is like, how cool is that?
Yeah.
I didn't have a choice. I mean, my parents basically said, you're going here and that's where you're going. And it's like, all right, let's roll.
Yeah. The struggle to find stuff previously.
I told my parents I'll do an outward bound. That's what I said. I was like, I'll go into
Did you ever?
No.
Yeah, no.
If I showed up in an outward bound, I would have immediately been sent to a hospital because I would have been started withdrawing, and they don't have, doctors there.
Oh my gosh. I'm an indoor cat. I could never.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This has been absolutely amazing. I'm so glad that you came here and shared your story with us. Tell all the peoples where they can find you. What are your socials?
The socials, right? Yes. You can find me. I think it's ZW Clark on Instagram. Release Recovery is our Instagram for the for-profit. Release Recovery Foundation is the Instagram for the nonprofit. You can call us. You can go to our website, releaserecovery.com. I promise you we will respond.
You have your own podcast?
Yes, the Zac Clark Show. You can DM them. They're like, that's been cool. We've started to help some people through that. And it's a great resource. We're having some interesting guests just like you. So it's a lot.
Yeah.
We're getting it out there in a lot of ways. And we're very accessible, probably too accessible at times for myself. But
it's like a give and take.
It's a life I chose.
Yep. Oh, and here you are. Well, thank you so much. This has been amazing. Thank you all for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Go Birds.